Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. Before we introduce our guest, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift. So if your district would like unrestricted funds for higher teacher salaries or whatever your district needs, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay, today we have the superintendent of HEB ISD, Superintendent Harrington. Superintendent Harrington, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's a fun
Yes.
time of year, so we're having fun over here.
Yeah, it's the holidays
Yep.
and we've had so many superintendents and board. I think we're close to 100 episodes now on the podcast, and with 99% of them are superintendents. We have a couple board members in there as well. And just we just love everybody giving back to public education. We're spreading the good word around public ed. But just so everybody gets to know you a little bit and gets to know your district a little bit, could you share a little bit about your background and maybe the size of your district and location and that sort of thing?
Yep. Well, let's start with the district. HEB Hearst, Euless, Bedford. Those are the three major cities of our district. We're right next to DFW Airport. So that is our direct neighbor. So right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're about 23,000 students. We have two big 6A high schools, LD Bell and Trinity. We're an extremely diverse district. I think niche.com said that we were the most diverse district in the nation.
Wow.
It's one of those. Our Trinity High School has what they call the Hall of Flags, and they have a flag that represents the nationality of all their students, and there's usually about 80 flags flying in the Hall of Flags. So it's a very unique district, and it's just we feel, and we always have, we feel stronger, with that diversity. We all come together to make one great unit moving forward, and it's just it's a pretty cool thing to see. So that's kind of who we are. I'm not originally from Texas. I am from Buffalo, New York. Go Bills, and Die Hard Mafia, which they make fun of me every day down here. But that's okay because we're winning. Um, but my wife and I ended up down here, and kind of because of the airport. My wife just retired, or recently retired from American Airlines. She was a flight attendant for a long time, 35 years. And that's what brought us to this area. And, I think we've been here almost 30 years now in this area, and really, really have enjoyed our time.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, wow. What a story, right? With your family and moving down from New York and wow, and that's a large district, right? 20,000 students. That's a big district.
Yeah,
And
we're a
then
big district there.
yeah. And so we've had speaking of diversity, we've had so many different types of school districts, right? Small districts, large districts, and just all over the state of Texas and Oklahoma. And there's a lot of diversity there too, diversity of thought, diversity of how things are structured and processes and focus. And just kind of curious with your district, what's the passion, what's the focus right now related to public education? Is there kind of one hot topic that stands out above the rest right now?
You know, it's there seems to be, and I don't like to dwell on the negative, but there seems to be negative rhetoric about public
Superintendent
education.
Harrington, your sound, your volume went down quite a bit.
Okay. Oh, is this any better?
That's better. Yep, that's better.
Okay, all of a sudden I got a notice that said this meeting is being recorded, which that's a little late to let me know now, but I wonder if that blocked
Okay.
it.
Okay, got it.
It's just, what we're dealing with now, there's some, negative rhetoric about public education. And, you know, a lot of the stories that you're hearing, nobody can tell you the exact origin of the story because the origin is usually filled with hyperbole, and then we end up with a great story, but we don't have a real event. And I think people are dealing with a lot of what could or this or that. And, you know, I look at our schools and the things we're accomplishing. and we're doing great things. And that's the piece. Public education, it's that place where everybody gets to go and recenter themselves. We all got a fair chance to get to the top. And that's to me, I say this all the time when I'm talking. I'm like, guys, there is no American dream without public education. It is that great equalizer that gives everyone that chance. Um, and we're going to protect that. We're going to make sure that the kids that come to our school have a chance to do great things. And that American dream is what produces great Americans. And that's the other piece. We have kids. John Gordon, the energy bus, he came and spoke to our district one time, and he said he tweeted afterwards. He goes, I've come to this district. These kids are from everywhere, and they're proud of where they're from, and they're proud to be Americans. I think we're doing our job.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. You mentioned people just trying to create a story, right? And that's one thing we try to share on the podcast is with all of our superintendents we've interviewed, all of our school districts that we've interviewed, they're all different. They're all very different. And it is interesting that there's the attack there on public education. I don't know who benefits at the end of the day by doing that. Yeah, I think every organization has some room for reflection, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
nothing's perfect in this world, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, I mean, there's some really amazing things happening in public ed. And so so with that being said, with all the rhetoric, and I mean, what are some of the action items that I mean, obviously you're on the podcast to we're spreading the good word here. Um, Anything else going on that, what's a way to get the word out?
Well, I just think, as you know, I talk with all the districts. I'm like, guys, we have to stand together and help each other. We can't have any weak links in public education.
Mhm.
That's the other piece is, we've been so competitive, and every day is not a football game because we do want to win those. But making sure we're helping each other and learning from each other. We're what we call a continuous improvement district. We follow the Baldrige model. And we examine everything we do. And I have a saying: we don't just do things; we do things that work. And if it doesn't work, we stop doing it.
Mhm.
So we're going to evaluate everything that's wrong. But when you find out something's not working right, if you fix the wrong thing, you haven't fixed the problem. So you've got to identify those root causes. We spend a lot of time really working hard to make sure our curriculum is aligned to the expectations, that we're getting the outcomes that we're supposed to get. And we see the results. The results, HEB performs better than any district who looks like HEB. We're over 60% low income. And yet when you look at our performance, we compare ourselves with districts that are only 20% low income, because that's the only place we can find comparisons. But I think if you work hard to do those things and really continue to focus, you're going to get the outcomes that we can get. What frustrates me is when we hear this rhetoric about public education, and then we throw a blanket over everybody.
Mhm.
If there's a problem out there, identify the problem and fix the problem. And that's what the thing I see is, it is a generic issue that then is the blanket is thrown over everyone, and not realizing the effect it's going to have on the districts that don't have a problem, which is the vast majority of us. I
Yeah.
um, national merit, national merit score to earn a national merit. You have to hit a certain score, and that score is dependent on your state. A lot of people don't realize that. They think it's just the same. It's not. Texas has the 10th highest score you need for national merit. Obviously we're doing things quite well. We have a very huge state, a lot of diversity from rural, suburban, urban. At the end of the day, though, to earn national merit in Texas, according by all 50 states, we're number 10. That's how
Mhm.
the 10th highest score. It's harder to be national merit in Texas. that's a testament to where we are achieving in education. So sometimes, we want to get a bad rap. Guys, you got to make sure that we're accomplishing what we need to accomplish. And that's the other thing too. Some of our rural areas, they need to be accomplishing what they need to be accomplishing. And for some of those areas, they do need to be more focused on vocational, which honestly, we need to be more focused on vocational, even in the suburban areas. Everybody I get a welding certification for is going to make more money than my first year teachers. If we can, we've been talking about wanting to add plumbing because we saw a study the other day. The average master plumber is 56 years old. We better start adding plumbers to the system, or we're all going to have a problem.
Mhm.
Those are the things that we need to be focused on in public education.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know everything happening out there as far as some of the rhetoric goes. It seems like, social agendas seems to be a hot topic. I'm pushing certain social initiatives, but it seems like Texas is very I mean, Texas in general is kind of its own country to a certain extent, It's uh when you enter
Sometimes we think that.
when you interact with other I don't know, maybe you don't, but if do you ever interact with superintendents like that are on the other side of the country that maybe because as far as Texas, I mean, we talk with all Texas superintendents. I mean, we'll probably branch out more in the future, but our superintendents we meet with are Texas and Oklahoma. Is there a vastly different perspective on different ideologies with other superintendents, let's say I don't know, New York or Minnesota or where somewhere up north?
I got to be honest. I don't spend that much time. We do try and hit. I always talk to my people. We make sure we go to at least one national conference a year.
Mhm.
Um, we don't ever want to fall into isolationism and not know what's going on. Um, but I have to be honest. I probably usually do that once a year, and that's it. So I got to be honest. I haven't spent probably as much time as I should seeing what issues they're dealing with or wherever. You know, the people we deal with is Texas, Oklahoma. Um, those are the conversations that we probably share more with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't follow all of the media stuff because it's you never know. It's kind of a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like when I do hear a story, it's like, okay, this is way up and this is nowhere close to home here. Um, yeah, so I was just kind of curious about that because Texas is unique, and I don't know if that's ever put out there in the media. Hey, Texas is different than, I don't know what these other guys are doing, but Texas is different. But
Yeah.
you see it in other things. You don't see it as pu in public education as much, but um, very cool. So, um, let's talk a little bit about kind of what's on the horizon for your district, right? So there's school vouchers, that's a conversation. Funding's always
Mhm.
a conversation. Um, you guys seem like you're centrally located, you're a large district, you're diverse, you're performing well, and you have a lot of diversity. So what are y'all gonna do to take it to the next level? And what is the next level?
Yeah. So our voters just approved last year a $1 billion bond. And so we're rebuilding both high schools. And uniquely, I mean, we're completely landlocked here. So we've got small sites and that's all we have. So we're building them on site. So we're rebuilding big 6A schools while school's going on
Hmm.
because there's not much of an option. So that's going to be exciting though to breathe new life into those buildings. Um, we're pretty good with our money, and we think we're pretty frugal, but we also feel like we've gotten everything out of them we can,
Mhm.
and very undersized. We're big 6As, and these are buildings. The square footage is closer to a 4A, small 5A.
Mhm.
So we were pretty cramped, and so it'll be pretty exciting to get these buildings done, but it's going to take some time. Um, but at the same, you talk about funding. We kind of saw this coming, and we've been setting aside some funds over the last several years to get us through this. And so that's the one piece we're not cutting programs, we're not cutting staff right now. We feel the crunch, the funding is not there, inflation has hurt us. But the monies that we set aside are allowing us to continue to do the things that we planned on doing. We talk about this a lot in our district about avoiding the roller coaster. And you get on the roller coaster, and that's not, you hire people and then you got to let them go. You start a program and you cancel it. That these kids, they start a program, they want to finish it. You hire these people, I want to be able to keep them as long as we can. That's what builds, the great districts, is the stability. And that's what, by being as smart as we can with our money and having the ability to ride through this, is really helping us. We're adding programs instead of cutting. We're adding, we didn't have an early college. We're adding early college next year. We're adding our junior ROTC program. These programs have been in the plans for years. And because we did kind of anticipate some of this, we're able to continue to move forward. The demographer said we'd get smaller by several hundred students over the last couple of years. We've actually gotten bigger by several hundred students. So I do think there's a lot to creating the stability, where you're seeing some of the struggles is causing some chaos by the fact that we did some advanced planning. We've created more stability, and I think that's helping us, not have the movement and loss of students. You mentioned vouchers. Voucher, we're not afraid of vouchers. I'm not afraid of competition. We have a great product. Come over and go to school. My concern with vouchers is, I don't know how you can fund vouchers when the state of Texas, all the schools, we are $2 billion underfunded for special education.
Mm-hmm.
Until special education is fully funded, I don't know how we have money for vouchers. We still only get half funding for pre-K, yet pre-K has gone full day. There's areas that we have to be funded at a full level before you can then say that there's funds available for vouchers. As far as accountability with the public money, I think the public's got questions there that need to be answered. I don't understand that you can just give money with no accountability. So I think there's things that have to be worked out with that. But as far as people, are you scared? No, I'm not. I'm not scared. I'm concerned about public money going to non-public purposes. I'm concerned that we're not fully funded. I'm concerned that there's been no accommodation for inflation. But as far as losing students or things like that, honestly, I think we're going to continue to draw students who want to be a part of HEV-ISD.
Very good. Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, obviously you'll have a lot of great things going on. I really like the mindset of, look, we're not afraid, right? It's competition, and it kind of helps everyone rise to the occasion. I see what you're saying on the funding. A couple questions around the funding piece. So obviously there's a lot of changes happening at the federal level related to public ed. Um, do you think any of the changes attached to that will help funding at all? Or because it seems like that's kind of a theme behind it, of like there's a lot of bureaucracy and things like that that affect how much funding actually gets distributed. And I'm probably paraphrasing poorly. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, they talked about moving to these block grants. I, you know, if the reduction in bureaucracy allows more money to get to us, that's great. That's a great idea. We'll wait and see. In the sense of, it's one thing if this can be made better, let's make it better. But the one thing we can't handle, I can't have it worse. We get a lot of special ed funding, but again, the feds are underfunding special education. So that's a problem. We get a lot of our title money, which is for the low income students. That's a problem. If we don't get that money, that support from the federal government has been huge, and it's a part of our budget. Now, those aren't huge amounts. We don't get huge amounts of money from the feds, but it's still significant to our budget.
Hmm.
And it would be a major issue if we didn't have it.
Okay. So it could, it's to be determined, right? Exactly,
Yeah.
how much on the
What
federal.
and what does it look like? Yeah, I know. It's like, here's the thing. What I worry about is I understand, let's clean up the system, make the system easier, smoother. I understand that. And it's going to sound crazy from the superintendent side to say, but the checks and balances, which the checks and balances on the federal side are such a pain. I but I also worry about having no checks and balances. I mean, our systems are all based on having a system of checks and balances. And so who's governing the use of that money, the execution of it? Are you doing
Mm.
what it's supposed to be done? There, those were the systems in place that the Department of Ed always was in charge of. So are those still going to be in place?
I've heard a lot from, I mean, this has been a common theme with nearly probably 80% of the superintendents we've talked to. Funding, and then it's being held at the state level, right? So not being dispersed. I guess there's and hopefully I'm getting this right, where there's funding being held and not sent to the districts. And I'm just curious, uh, if that's correct, right? I think I've heard that a few times. Um, like why are they holding, are they waiting for certain metrics? Is it just a slow process because of the bureaucracy? Is it is there some other metric they're trying to meet? What's going on there?
Now, I will say this, I am not a CFO.
Yeah.
But I will also give myself a little credit. I think I understand school finance as well as anyone who's not who's not a CFO.
Hmm.
Um, the only thing I'm aware of was during COVID, like ESSER one was kept by the state because what the state said is we're going to keep this money because we've been providing things to you as we're working through the pandemic. Um, as far as the timing of the distribution, I, I have not been, none of my people have come to me and said, distribution or anything was being held by the state. So I haven't really heard that. One of the things that has hurt us was when they redid the census and they changed how title funding was coming for the low income and census blocks, and that has hurt us a little. Like we've seen a reduction in it, but that was a formula change. Um, and I understand it. It just it didn't represent the actual kids we had, and
Hmm.
that became a bit of a problem, losing some of those funds, because, and again, we feel very good about how we use those funds to drive the education. We use almost all of our title money in elementary. We feel it's extremely important. I mean, and we all know that if they're not reading on grade level by third grade, you've got a problem. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that. You teach them to read, then they read to learn.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. When you mentioned the roller coaster of funding earlier, how not with you guys, but just in general, when you're looking at public ed, obviously y'all manage your funds really well, and it sounds like y'all are in a good spot. In general, though, where districts are cutting budgets and they're flux, is that because the state is providing incentives and then taking them away, and it's just it's because it's not a stable revenue stream? Is that what's happening, or?
You know, most of the decisions that are made, they're made from a good place.
Yeah.
But when you make a decision for the entire state, it doesn't work for everyone.
Hmm.
And so um, we've had a number of things throughout the years where they would come up with a new finance system. And while that finance system might help 95% of the districts, 5% of the districts might get hurt just because of how the new funding works. And we were like this last funding model, we actually were hurt by it, but they did a 5-year hold harmless. And so we got, and that's the money we set aside and said, we're not spending that money. Um,
Hmm.
but that's, um, those are the pieces. Like no one model is ever going to work. We have too much, Texas is too different.
Yep.
And then we come up with this fix, this fix, this fix, and then this legislature kind of runs out of fixes, and then we have a new funding model will come in place or a major advancement. I say advancement, just they're just going to try and find a new plan.
Hmm.
And no matter what they do, it's never going to work for every district. There's just too much. And so that's one of the pieces. The other thing that really hurts is populations move, neighborhoods age out. Those things happen, and that's really tough on a district, as you grow and grow and grow, you build to serve the students that are there, and then all of a sudden nobody leaves, and all of a sudden you have less and less kids and nowhere for them to come. And then you talk about an emotional thing, and when you have to close schools,
Hmm.
oh man, everybody's crying. Everybody loves their elementary school. That's the other thing I always, if everybody's so mad at public education, how come everybody loves their own school? If everybody's own school is so great, where's the bad one? All right, because
Yeah.
and everybody, when you have to make a decision to close a school, if you can't fill the school, you have to close it. But it also
Yep.
makes a good story, and the news that usually paints us as the bad guy for closing the store because it makes a great story. But the
Yeah.
story is if you're going to be financially stable, you can't keep a building open that's half full.
Hmm.
You're not funded for that. You're funded to be efficient.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of tough decisions that I don't think a lot of people are plugged into, which is a big part of this podcast. Is we're shining a light on some of the things that go on in public education, that and all the good things that are there's a way more good things to happen. Um, I can't name
Well,
one. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you want a good thing. Something we sit here with Bell Helicopter. Bell Helicopter is our neighbor, and every Christmas, every holiday season, they give us two helicopters for 2 days and two pilots who volunteer their time, and a group raises money to pay for the fuel. And we fly Santa to every elementary school. And like I said, we're a highly diverse district, and we have a lot of, whether it's, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, or Merry Christmas, or just Happy Holidays. We have a large South Asian population, a large Muslim population. Everybody wants to see Santa during the holidays. And it's something they've been doing probably over 30 years. And Santa's going to fly in to every elementary school. Um, and it's just watching those kids and understanding, guys, we get it. Growing up in this country, in our states, is more than just taking standardized tests. And we're going to teach you the things you need to do, but there is a day and time that we're all going to have fun. We
Hmm.
just had our senior citizen breakfast, and we bring Santa for their senior citizen breakfast. Everyone has pictures with Santa. The senior citizens want their picture as much as the 6-year-olds.
That's
But
awesome. Yeah.
that's that's what's happening. That our public schools are the center of our communities. When you thrive, you know, uh, somebody's talking about failing schools. I go, I don't believe there's any such thing as a failing school. I think you have failing communities. I go, because it takes all of us not being successful to end up in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, this has been a great interview because it definitely highlights the a lot of the important things, the pillars in your district, the blocking and talent tackling that's happening, just all the fundamentals that are in place, but also you guys have created a great culture for your community, for your students, for your staff, and so yeah, very exciting. I really appreciate your time, Superintendent Harrington. But I just have one question before we close out. Just last
Yep.
question here. Um, who's somebody in public ed, maybe another superintendent that's been an inspiration to you in your career?
Oh, wow. You know, so many. That's interesting. I've worked for some really good superintendents. The man who preceded me here, Steve Chapman, uh, I learned so much about the continuous improvement processes. Robin Ryan in Grapevine, Colleyville, Karen Rue in Northwest. Just some great people.
Hmm.
My dad was a teacher.
Wow.
So
Okay.
he was a teacher and a coach, and you know, I when you get an opportunity to have a bunch of great people be examples for you, you got a chance of doing some good things.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, great. We'll hopefully we can have you on here again in the future, just an update, especially with all these bonds that are happening and all the, all the excitement around the
Yeah.
district and love to have you on the podcast again.
Well, hey, it'd be my pleasure.
Outstanding. Okay, well, thank you so much. And before we close out, we do want to give one final shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift, unrestricted funds. So if your district's in a bind and it needs higher teacher salaries or some other initiative, reach out to Ideal Impact. It's a faith-based company that's focused on helping students. So for those that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.